Hello, everyone. This is the Educated Conservative here. I'm going to be taking the political compass test today, and it's a two-dimensional square essentially. So you have left and right, and then you also have authoritarian, and then more not liberal but libertarian, which is what liberal originally meant until it was adulterated. Um, so essentially, I'm going to be taking this test. I have looked at it before, and I think I'm going to come out as more authoritarian than I actually am, and I'll explain it in a few reasons a bit later. I'll explain it when the countries come up. So let's read the first question. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Now, I actually believe this to be nonsensical, and here's why. If we take a laissez-faire approach to how we regulate things, then essentially what the people want will be the demand. The issue is what this question is actually asking, at least in my humble opinion, is should governments regulate these companies so that in their view it serves the people better? And I'd say no. I'd say we should take a laissez-faire approach to this. So I'm actually going to disagree with that on the grounds of what it is actually asking. That is such a loaded question, and I know what they're trying to ask, and they just fail. Generally, yes, businesses should have regulation, but I don't want it to be sweeping, and I don't want a government trying to regulate what's in my best interest. Take Social Security, for example, and Michael Manji in his book "Why I'm Not a Democrat" gives a very good explanation of the problems of Social Security, and he says essentially it's the idea of an organic government, and he goes up and he says, hey, I think I could manage my money better than you could, so I don't want to pay into Social Security. And the government says you have to, and he asks why, and the government says, well, most people don't plan for retirement, so we have Social Security. And he says, okay, I understand that, but I'm actually a pretty good investor, and I think I could invest my money better than you guys can, so why don't you let me take my money that would have gone into Social Security and at least put it in another retirement program. And the government objects to it. And essentially each time you have the government trying to do what's best for a group, it's not doing the best for everyone. There's always a few people suffering from it. That, as John Stuart Mill put, people are better at pursuing everyone's interests through their own, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. No, I'm absolutely horrible. Wow, it's already been 3 minutes. This political test is going to take forever. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. I disagree with that, believe it or not, as patriotic as I am. If the United States were to do something that is truly unjust, then I'd not do it. However, one of the issues, because, by the way, I'm going into the military, one of the things that always comes up, and this was asked by both my mother and my father, who don't want me to go into the military. I'm also more conservative than my parents. And they said, well, what about Vietnam? Would you fight in Vietnam? That was wrong. And I said, actually, I have to disagree with that. I think that, and I took a class on the Vietnam Wars at Boulder, where the professor was, just so far to the left. The history of Vietnam is very complicated, but essentially the problem with the U.S. supporting Vietnam is that we were supporting essentially, I don't want to say a regency, but the leader was generally the guy who was backed by imperialist France, Bao Dai, and this was very unpopular. But then you look at the communist side, and they're no better. So yes, I would have fought in Vietnam. Okay, brilliant. It's only 5 minutes, and we've gotten through 2 questions. This is going to go through very fast. Nobody chooses the country of his or her birth, so it is foolish to be proud of it. It's an interesting question, and I'd actually like to respond with an answer. Both of my grandparents are from India. They came to this country. My grandfather came to this country, with $5 in his pocket, and by the time he retired, he was making $250,000 at UCLA. My grandma got her master's in library science at USC, and every 4th of July, you'll see them wearing red, white, and blue like every other American. They're very patriotic. So maybe it's foolish to be proud of your birth, but it is not foolish to have pride in your country. I mean, the problem with this is I know what they're trying to ask. Our race has many superior qualities compared to other races. I disagree with that. However, I do believe that cultures can be superior to other cultures. And when you read something like The White Man's Burden by Rudyard Kipling, which, by the way, is actually one of my favorite poems. I'm going to do a full video on it. I promised like at least 8 or 9 videos that I'm going to have to do now. And what he's saying is by all means, guess what? Western culture was superior to that of everywhere else, essentially, at the time. And yes, I know there are people who would say, well, in the 13th, up to the 13th century, the Muslims were the most advanced. And, I mean, their society really did fall, and really did fall hard, and you have to realize that in Muslim society it was literally the trading hub, and they had all of these different people coming to these universities and discovering these things, and the kinds of research that they did, it wasn't based off of the pursuit of knowledge, but it was based off of the pursuit for these sort of virtue ethics. But I digress. You have I'm not a cultural relativist. I do believe that cultures are better than other cultures, and I do believe that generally the Westerners have a better culture than the Middle East. I know, I'm horrible. As Rudyard Kipling wrote, "Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the thread of terror, and check the show of pride, by open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace, fill full the mouths of famine, and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, watch sloth and heathen folly, bring all your hope to naught." To say that there is no validity in that, or to say that we essentially shouldn't be civilizing other countries is a bit almost callous, really. The end result of imperialism is we did bring education, we did bring culture. There were a lot of problems. There's a lot of abuse with us exploiting resources and stuff. And I don't even want to say us, because I'm in the U.S. We were way less guilty of it than the Europeans. We were trying to bring infrastructure, but yeah, it was abused. But that was not the intention. And I think that what we were trying to bring about, the sort of neo-colonialism of bringing infrastructure was not a bad idea. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Oh yeah, because in the Middle East things are that cut and dry. I mean, we're fighting with Iran, against, was it Yemen at that? I don't even remember anymore. It's a clusterfuck. I'm gonna strongly disagree with that. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. I have to strongly agree with that. Watch, I'm going to come up as authoritarian now. But seriously, think about that. As the U.S., when we went into Pakistan was that justified to kill bin Laden? I have to agree with that. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. Yes. Apparently, there is a sizable amount of Americans who only got their information from the Colbert Report, which is pretty dangerous because all he does is make fun of conservatives and purport this liberal agenda. Yeah, it's a great show. I love the Colbert Report, even though I'm a conservative. It points a lot of problems with the modern conservative platform. They're completely uncritical. They base everything on religion, and what's funny is, ever since the 1800s, you have all of these philosophers writing on the importance of secular ethics, and it just flies right over their head. Actually, I'm not even sure they understand the practice of secular ethics. 2 days ago, I posted a video on relativism yesterday, and then I came up to this video, and it said why the atheist viewpoint of cultural relativists is impossible, and atheists generally are not cultural relativists. And they say, well, how can they be anything other than cultural relativists if they don't believe in God? And dare I say that morals do not have to descend from some deity. And I'm sure that Buckley is rolling in his grave about me saying this right now, especially since I'm using his profile image and everything. Anyways, next page. Okay, there we go. People are ultimately divided more by class than nationality. I'm going to have to disagree with that. I think that generally people are divided by nationality. I'm also not a Marxist. Controlling information is more important than controlling unemployment from a government. Oh, inflation. I strongly agree with that. What's funny is Sargon read that. Sargon of Akkad, that is. And he just, well, I don't know. And I actually do have some formal training in economics. Yeah, if your currency isn't worth anything, then creating jobs is not going to do much. However, you had how Hitler approached his Great Depression, and he essentially started creating jobs, and then the inflation kind of followed suit. But in order to do that, you have to expand government drastically. So I believe that instead of controlling unemployment, you should be controlling inflation and making your currency worth something again, so that people aren't using it as toilet paper, which is literally what happened in Germany. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Yeah, they do. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is fundamentally a good idea. Okay, first of all, we know that practically it's a horrible, horrible idea. Practically. By the way, this is from Marxism. Fundamentally, is it a good idea? If I work my ass off, literally, so let's say, let's just say I'm majoring in math and physics, and I'm gonna go on to get a master's in engineering, and then go off to serve my country. And should I be paying taxes to support the person who chose to major in social justice? No. I mean, I worked hard in order to make money, and I want to reap the rewards of my hard work. I know that is horrible. I strongly disagree with this. It's not even fundamentally a good idea, because it doesn't. If somebody goes above and beyond the call of duty, how do you reward them? It's absolutely absurd. Fun fact about Marx, and yes, I'm going to do a video about Marx too. He let his daughter die because he didn't want to work. Yes, I'm going to do a video that goes into way more depth, but he just refused to work. He thought he was too good for it, and yet all of his writings are essentially talking about how everybody would need to work, so on and so forth. I guess so that he didn't have to. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a mono-branded product. Something that a hippie would say. Not to immediately dismiss it as that's something that a hippie would say, but I mean, yeah, you go and you're charged $1. I mean, boo-hoo. You can. What's funny is I don't think these advertising schemes are as effective as the companies think them to be. But my philosophy professor vehemently disagrees with me on this. He says that most people in society and even most of the people in his class are affected by it, and that I just happen to be unique. But I don't think people are that stupid. Then again, there was something along the lines of 4 out of 10 people thinking that the sun revolved around the earth still today in the U.S. Which I just find unfathomable. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Disagree. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by and contribute nothing. What's funny is this is definitely coming from a sort of Marxist view, but both Christianity and therefore Judaism and Islam, they have rules against making money off of money. Now, generally, I think that if you invest your money wisely, you should be able to reap those rewards. You researched into a company, you invested in it, paid off, or it didn't. So I'm going to disagree with that. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Sometimes. Wait, is this talking about tariffs? Disagree. Let's see, because on the one hand, you do want tariffs to. If we didn't have tariffs, there is a good chance that everything that would be buying would be made in China. Then again, is a tariff necessary if the quality of products from China is less of those than the U.S. products? So I'm gonna mark disagree. The only social responsibilities of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. Social responsibility. So I earlier conceded that it still seems like a loaded question to me. I'm just going to put agree with that. The rich are too highly taxed. Something along the lines of 50% now. I mean, yes, we have a progressive tax rate, but there have been studies showed that the progressive tax rate stunts growth because people stop wanting to make more money. If I'm running a company and if I want to make more money for myself, essentially I'm only getting marginal returns because the tax rate keeps on getting higher and higher. Does this make sense? Oops, I shifted that over. Let's look this up. There we go. Perfect. Okay, that's... I think that's relatively fair. Yeah, that's... Yeah, that's relatively fair. The ability to pay the higher rate of standards of medical. I'm agreeing with this. And there's a reason why. And Steven Crowder has a very good video that I'll link to it. Absolutely amazing video on the problems with socialized medicine. I don't. Essentially, what ended up happening in Canada is that they socialized medicine, and it was absolutely horrible. And then what ended up happening is Canada created these super hospitals, which operated on the old system, which only rich people can afford. Previously, everybody could afford them. Why? Because everybody was paying into private healthcare. But now, since only a few people are paying into private healthcare, which are the rich people, only the rich people are getting decent treatment. Governments should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Agree. Even John Stuart Mill said that. A genuine free market requires that. Yeah, that's true. The freer the market, the freer the people. I'm going to agree with that. Not strongly agree, but agree. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. So, here's the thing here. I agree with this. And yes, there is a scientific basis for this. And if you guys want me to do a video on abortion, I certainly will. I've argued for it multiple times, and yeah, you don't have to be a religious nutcase in order to argue against abortion. With regards to rape, I think that rape should be an exception, because it's just so... It could literally... It already destroys the woman's life if we're taking into account the moral rights of the woman as opposed to a being with partial moral rights. I think the rights of the infant should be the rights of the woman should take precedent. However, if the pregnancy was due to sexual irresponsibility, then I think that it should be illegal to get an abortion, which is what causes the vast majority of these cases. So I'm going to put agree. All authority should be questioned. I'm going to disagree with that. I mean, it's fine to question it. There's nothing wrong with questioning it. I'm somewhere in the neutral standpoint here. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, because that works very well. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. That's a good one. Theaters or museums. I mean, if this was, I'd have to agree with this. The reason being that I when it comes to arts, I don't really care if it's with regards to science or history. Then I'd take a different stance. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I strongly disagree with that. All people should have their rights, but it's better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. Now we're a melting pot. Well, one of the things that makes the U.S. strong is our diversity of culture. I'm sorry, I'm just rereading it. Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. I disagree. I disagree. Whoops, disagree with that as a kid who's been spanked. I wonder if this is talking about paternalism. It is natural to keep some secrets. Yeah. It's natural, so. Possessing marijuana for personal use should be a criminal offense? Yes. I'm going to have to do a whole video on drug use for some of you libertarians. John Stuart Mill writes that one should not be able to sell themselves into slavery because it violates their own autonomy. I take the same position about drugs. If you're entirely dependent on a drug, you're infringing upon your own autonomy. Therefore, you are violating your own freedom or liberty, and you should not be allowed to do it. I think that's justified under that train of thought. I'll do a whole video on it. I think I'm up to 10 now. Possessing, yeah. And then you also look at what's happening in Boulder and Washington. In Boulder, the crime rates have gone up, and it's just been a clusterfuck in Boulder. In Washington, you have an increased amount of kids who are now doing marijuana because it is legal for adults to do marijuana, so they don't think it's okay. Prime function of schooling should be equip the future generation to find jobs. Disagree. It should be to educate people with serious. I disagree with that. I think it should be considered. But who are we, the Nazis? No. The most important thing for children to learn to accept is discipline. That doesn't mean blindly following orders. It means getting your stuff together. It doesn't mean saying yes to everything. It means, being organized. There are no savage and civilized people. There are only different cultures. I did a whole video on this. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Strongly agree. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it. I agree with that. I strongly disagree with that. But it's good for... I agree. Not strongly agree, but I generally agree. It's similar to Mill saying that people are better at pursuing the greater good through their own. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. The reason why I disagree with that is because we have a great need for unbiased reporting, and it's just simply not happening. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counterterrorism. I disagree with that. I don't think, first of all, with regards to privacy, I don't think we necessarily have a right to privacy, especially when we post all of our status online. I find it odd. There is a great South Park episode where Cartman infiltrates the NSA and he's just posting everything online, and he literally hooked up this device to his brain. Yeah, I disagree with it. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids... It's an advantage. I still disagree with yeah, it avoids all the arguments. Yeah, that's not an advantage. That's why I don't look at it as an advantage. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Yeah, I do agree with that. What's funny is people literally post pictures of drugs online, like of them smoking drugs. Oh, you don't believe me? I smell marijuana wrong. Oh, I guess I spelled it right. Look at it. Look. Do you think these people are gonna get arrested? There are people who admit that they have smoked weed. God, can you just load the images? and they don't get in trouble for it. They do not. Why? Because the NSA's job isn't to go after these people. So, yeah, you really don't have to worry about this. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier. So, yeah, I agree with that. Death penalty should be an option for the most serious times. I strongly agree with that. I mean, you're prosecuting the like the Nuremberg trials. You're prosecuting the Nazi generals. Can you kill them? Yes. Civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. I strongly disagree with that. Everybody obeys the laws. Abstract art doesn't represent anything and shouldn't be considered art at all. That's a personal opinion that I hold. I agree with that. Yeah, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. It is a waste of time to rehabilitate some criminals. I agree with that. The business person and manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. I disagree with that, but I'd say that the scientist and the engineer are. I'd say that the scientist and the engineer are absolutely the most important kinds of people we have in society. Mothers may have careers, but their duty is to be homemakers. I disagree with that. I mean, it depends. If the father, let's say if there's a couple and the mother, and then the father wants to have a kid, and the mother says, "Okay, but I want to work my career," and the father says, "I'll be a stay-at-home dad," then yeah, by all means. Yeah. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting plant genetic resources. What? I just disagree with that. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Yes, I do think that generally people just say, yeah, that's just how it is, or a bit more mature. It doesn't. Now, if the authority is unjust, then by all means oppose it. What? Astrology? Oh yeah, no. You cannot be, because secular ethics are impossible. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping generally disadvantaged. I strongly agree with that. Some people are naturally unlucky. I disagree with that. There are plenty of opportunities. A few will pass you by, and you're either going to be ready to seize them or you're not going to be. I'd be livid if I had a kid and they were being indoctrinated into Islam or a certain religion. It's funny how it doesn't say which religion. I love that. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. This goes on to a whole thing about whether promiscuity is immoral, and I think that it can be. Well, not. It kind of depends. I mean, I'm going to strongly disagree with it, but I think that there are exceptions. The same thing should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Yeah, I agree with that. There is a study, by the way, which shows that kids in same-sex marriages do not get the same well-roundedness as in a heterosexual relationship with heterosexual parents. But I just think that there are so many bad heterosexual families out there, and that the screening process would be rigorous enough to find good homosexual couples. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. I agree with that. Although I just think it's there's some people who just talk about pornography way too much. Like who are literally addicted to porn. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. No one can feel naturally homosexual. First of all, let's say if this was true, does it make homosexual immoral? Then this is called the naturalist argument, and it's actually a fallacy. And I've written a paper on it. An appeal to nature is a fallacy. An appeal, whether something is natural or not, has no bearing on its morality. And I have to do a video on that. I'm up to 11 now. 11 videos, guys, that I have promised, I think. So I strongly disagree with that. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. On the one hand, I do have a problem with the over-sexualized nature of society. With that being said, I don't think it should be censored. I'm vehemently against censorship. With exception, child pornography notwithstanding, that should be just completely illegal. I genuinely. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that openness about sex has gone a bit too far. There are certain places where it is acceptable. You go on certain forums about sexuality, that's okay. You're talking to a group of close friends about sexuality, that's okay. But then you have, this sort of over-sexualized nature, and then you just see all this stuff in the celebrity media. I'm going to have to agree with that. And I'm not going to comment on whether it's immoral or not. Let's see where I stand. Come on, load. Load, damn you. I'm waiting. I'm going to pause this and wait for it to load. Alright, well, there we go. Now you have it. I lean more libertarian, although I'm closer to the neutral. That seems about right to me. I'm definitely not up here. I do think that we have some duties towards our country. I think that some of the questions, and I did talk about them, bumped it up again, especially the abortion one, because abortion is seen to be legal moralism, which is one of the more sweeping principles of one of the more sweeping liberty limiting principles. Yet I think it can be justified under things other than legal moralism. You even have other things such as let's say if you did prescribe I think it's safe to say that a fetus has partial moral rights. I don't think you can prescribe none, and I think you can prescribe it the full status of a human being either. I think you can prescribe it partial moral rights like you would a dog or some other semi-intelligent animals. Even if you do not give it the status that you would a human, that does not make it okay to abort it. But I'm going to probably do a full if there is a demand for it, I will make a video on it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It does give a good explanation of where I stand. I address all of these questions. I put about 2 minutes into each of them. Yeah, have a good one, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video.